Hi, I'm Teresa Lee from Sumner Elementary. This final screencast for the Solids and Liquids kit will cover the lessons pertaining to liquids as well as the final assessments. There are only 5 liquids investigations, and I find that they move pretty quickly, pun intended. Lesson 17 is the post-unit assessment. It not only allows you to document student progress, it helps the students realize how much they have learned about solids and liquids. So let's review some pointers for managing the liquids you'll be working with in these lessons. Your kit should come with some drink trays, like the ones you see in Dunkin' Donuts. This is not a reminder that it is your turn to do the cluster coffee run. These trays will help you in organizing the containers of liquid that your students will be investigating. The tasting spoons are what students will be using in most of the investigations. There's plenty of them in the kit, and just make sure that you use a separate spoon for each liquid. I would encourage you to fill the cup 1/4 to 1/3 full. It's easier to refill cups than to clean up spills that are sure to happen, because they are only in first grade after all. Sometimes the oil interacts with the plastic cups and the zip bag, so it's not advisable to store liquids in the cups for extended periods of time. This brings us to Lesson 10, and Lesson 10 investigates the glue and the water as the first two liquids, that you're looking at. This is your pre-assessment of your students' prior knowledge about liquids. You're going to start with a whole group brainstorm before introducing the materials. Inform students verbally and by labeling the cups that the materials that they are working with are glue and water. It's not a guessing game, and you really want to focus on actually observing the liquids instead of trying to label or name them. The procedure section of Lesson 10 is pretty well scripted and helps to ensure that students are doing a thorough job of investigating the water and the glue. So I encourage you to take a look at that as well. Lesson 11 introduces the 4 liquids that students will investigate. Make sure that the liquids are labeled. So they're investigating water, glue, green shampoo, and oil. Labeling the liquids helps students identify what liquids they're working with and will serve as a scaffold in their student writing. When planning these lessons, think about how you want to cover the student workspace for ease of cleanup. Once again, the procedure section of Lesson 11 does a great job of pacing the questions and flow of the lesson. I think it's a great investigation to model the way that scientists work. They investigate solids on different surfaces, and students also use hand lenses in this lesson. Lesson 12 has students observing a property of liquids is that they all flow. Another observation students will make is that although liquids have a definite volume, they lack a definite shape. Students will be pouring liquids into a zip bag for today's observation. Check to ensure that your bags are zipped before students start their investigation. This is a lesson where I sometimes swap the zip bags in the kit for a more durable bag that I purchase. Make sure that you allow time for cleanup in your lesson, and the concepts of viscous and fluid are vocabulary that may be introduced, and if you're going to use that vocabulary, you might want to think about some ways for kinesthetic learners to maybe model what viscous looks like versus fluid during the whole group discussion. In Lesson 13, students are conducting drop races. They are applying the observations that they made from Lesson 12 to predict which of 2 liquids would win in a drop race. The drop race allows them to test their predictions. There are many variables that can alter the outcome of the drop races. For example, the angle or tilt of the tray, shaking the tray, even the size of the drops. That being said, the results should be fairly consistent. If you find students with vastly different results for the same liquid, consider having them retest that liquid together so that they can discuss why their results varied and hopefully come to the conclusion that we are looking for our desired outcome. During year-end reflection, students often refer to drop races as one of their favorite investigations, and it's also one that they could try to replicate at home with their families. Lesson 14 has students exploring the miscibility of glue and oil and shampoo in water. Miscibility is the property that all liquids possess, and it's their ability to mix in water. Students will also observe whether a liquid floats or sinks when it's added to water. The oil should float while the glue and shampoo will sink when added to water. Some of the observations are best made when observing the cup of water from the side as the liquid is added. I usually tell students to put their heads down like they're going to take a nap in order to better observe. If you don't have a sink in your room for this lesson, you might want to use some sort of a bucket or container to clean up the mixtures that are produced in this lesson. The end of lesson 14 also has a reading passage about how people clean up oil spills. Lesson 15 is the performance assessment for the liquids, just as lesson 9 was the performance assessment for the solids lessons. I have highlighted in blue 2 of the observations that I usually like to try to make about students when giving this assessment. Since students completed the solids investigations as a complete set before embarking on the liquids investigations, they really don't get a chance to consider them together. Lesson 16 gives students an opportunity to compare the properties that solids and liquids possess. Using the class size Venn diagram allows students to share and discuss their findings just like scientists do at work. Lesson 17 is the post-unit assessment. You're only referring to 4 of the materials: the steel ball, the blue spoon, the water, and the glue. Students do not need to have these materials in front of them for this assessment. You're going to start with the chart from lesson 1 that you generated. Have students look through their notebook to complete the following statement. I know the ball is a solid because, have them finish that statement. Then, using the chart from lesson 10, have students use evidence from their notebooks to complete the statement, I know the glue is a liquid because. Once they've completed those 2 statements, students may add 2 or more things that they have learned about solids and liquids. When looking at student work, you are looking for students to give more supporting details and more depth than the charts that they generated in lessons 1 and 10. So thanks for joining me for this screencast. If you have any questions, please contact the science department or send me an email.